Welcome, dear listener, to a story that exists at the intersection of time itself, where yesterday's promises meet tomorrow's dreams, and where two hearts discover that some connections transcend the boundaries of space and time. Dr. Harper Montgomery pressed her gloved fingers against the brass nameplate of the Thornfield Institute for Temporal Studies. Watching the afternoon light play across letters that seemed to shimmer with their own inner luminescence, the Victorian mansion stood like a sentinel against time itself, its Gothic towers piercing the Seattle sky while ivy crept up walls that had witnessed more than a century of human stories inside these walls. Harper spent her days as the head archivist, carefully cataloging artifacts that whispered secrets from bygone eras. Each object that crossed her desk carried within it the emotional imprint of lives lived, dreams pursued, and hearts that had beaten with the same hopes and fears that filled her own chest. She believed, with a conviction that bordered on the mystical, that every photograph, every letter, every treasured keepsake held within its physical form the very essence of human connection. This evening, as autumn painted the mansion's gardens in shades of amber and crimson, Harper found herself alone in the main archive room, surrounded by towers of carefully labeled boxes. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed 6 times, its deep resonance seeming to ripple through dimensions she couldn't quite name. Most of her colleagues had departed for the day, leaving her in the companionable silence she cherished. But tonight, that silence felt different. It pulsed with an anticipation she couldn't explain, as if the very air around her hummed with possibilities yet to unfold. Harper paused in her work, removing her wire-rimmed glasses to clean them with a soft cloth, and gazed out the tall windows toward the mansion's east wing where Dr. Alexander Volkov conducted his quantum experiments. She had never met the enigmatic physicist, though she'd heard whispers about his work from other staff members. They spoke of him in hushed tones tinged with both respect and bewilderment, describing experiments that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality, studies of parallel timelines and quantum entanglement that challenged everything they thought they knew about the nature of existence. Harper replaced her glasses and returned to the time capsule before her, the ornate silver box discovered during renovation of the mansion's foundation. According to the accompanying documentation, it had been sealed in 1923 by the mansion's previous owner, Cordelia Thornfield, with instructions that it not be opened until exactly 100 years had passed. That deadline had arrived precisely 3 days ago. As she carefully lifted the capsule's lid with archival tools, Harper felt a familiar thrill run through her veins. This moment, the first glimpse into someone else's carefully preserved hopes and dreams, never failed to move her. Inside, wrapped in faded silk, lay a collection of objects that seemed to glow with their own inner light: a fountain pen with an ivory handle, a pressed rose between sheets of tissue paper, a photograph of 2 figures standing beneath the mansion's oak tree, and most intriguingly, a sealed envelope marked with elegant script, "For those who understand that love transcends time itself." Harper's breath caught in her throat as she opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside, written in the same flowing hand, was a letter that made her heart skip a beat. To the archivist who believes objects hold memories, and to the physicist who sees poetry in equations, your love story began long before you met. Written in the quantum foam of possibility itself. Look for each other in the moments between seconds, in the spaces between heartbeats. She will have eyes like autumn leaves and hands that gentle history. He will have a voice like distant thunder and a mind that dances with the stars. When you find each other, remember that some things are destined across all possible worlds. The letter was signed simply C. Thornfield, Guardian of Future Hearts. Harper read the words 3 times, each reading sending a deeper shiver through her soul. Eyes like autumn leaves, she had been told this about her own hazel eyes countless times. Hands, that gentle history. Wasn't that exactly how she approached her work? But it was impossible. Absolutely impossible. No one in 1923 could have known about her, could have predicted. A soft knock at the archive room door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. She looked up to see a tall figure silhouetted in the doorway, backlit by the hallway's warm lighting. As he stepped forward, Harper felt the world tilt slightly on its axis. Dr. Alexander Volkov was not what she had expected. Instead of the stereotypical absent-minded professor, she found herself looking at a man whose presence seemed to fill the room with quiet intensity. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his fingers through it while lost in thought, and his eyes held depths that seemed to reflect infinite possibilities. When he smiled, something inside Harper's chest fluttered like wings. "Forgive the intrusion," he said, his voice carrying the faintest trace of a Russian accent, warm and resonant like distant thunder. "I am Sasha, Dr. Volkov from the Quantum Lab. I was wondering if you might have a moment to discuss something rather unusual." Harper's fingers still clutched Cordelia's letter, and she found herself staring at this man who seemed to have stepped directly from the mysterious prediction. "A voice like distant thunder," the letter had said. "A mind that dances with the stars." She began, then cleared her throat. "Of course. I'm Dr. Montgomery Harper. Please come in." As Sasha entered the archive room, his gaze immediately fell upon the open time capsule, and Harper noticed how his eyes seemed to brighten with curiosity and something else, something that looked almost like recognition. "A time capsule," he observed, moving closer with the careful grace of someone accustomed to handling delicate instruments. "These fascinate me. In my field, we often speak of information traveling through time, but these physical vessels, they carry something more, don't they? Something beyond mere data." Harper found herself nodding, surprised by his intuitive understanding. Most scientists she knew dismissed her theories about emotional resonance in objects as unscientific whimsy. "They do," she said softly. "I believe every object absorbs something of its owner's essence, their hopes, their fears, their love. When we handle these artifacts with the proper reverence, we can almost feel their heartbeat across the years," Sasha finished, his voice soft with wonder. Their eyes met across the archive table, and Harper felt something spark in the air between them, a recognition that went deeper than words, older than logic. In the growing twilight, with Cordelia's letter still warm in her hands and this mysterious physicist gazing at her with eyes that seemed to see straight through to her soul, Harper began to suspect that the evening held possibilities she had never dared to imagine. The grandfather clock chimed the quarter hour, and somewhere in its resonant tones, Harper could have sworn she heard the whisper of destiny beginning to unfold. "What I came to discuss," Sasha continued, his voice taking on an edge of excitement mixed with bewilderment, "relates directly to what you're experiencing right now. 3 days ago, during a quantum entanglement experiment in my lab, something extraordinary happened. My instruments detected what I can only describe as a temporal echo, information from the past resonating in the present moment with impossible precision." Harper's pulse quickened. 3 days ago, exactly when Cordelia's time capsule had reached its 100th anniversary and was cleared for opening, the readings suggested, Sasha continued, moving closer to examine the capsule's contents, that somewhere in this building, an object was being accessed that contained, Quantum encoded information almost as if someone had found a way to embed predictions about future events into the physical structure of matter itself. Harper's hands trembled slightly as she held up Cordelia's letter. You mean this? Sasha's breath caught audibly as he read the elegant script. His eyes widened, and when he looked up at Harper, she saw a mixture of scientific fascination and something deeper, a recognition that sent warmth spiraling through her chest. Eyes like autumn leaves, he murmured, his gaze lingering on her face with an intensity that made her cheeks flush. Hands that gentle history. He gestured toward her carefully gloved fingers, still cradling the antique paper with infinite care. And you, Harper whispered, her voice barely audible, a voice like distant thunder. A mind that dances with the stars for a moment. They stood frozen in the growing twilight of the archive room, surrounded by the whispers of 100 years' worth of human stories, while between them hummed an attraction that felt both brand new and ancient as the stars themselves. Sasha was the first to break the spell, running a hand through his dark hair in a gesture that Harper found endearingly vulnerable. This is impossible, he said, but his voice held wonder rather than denial. From a scientific perspective, what we're looking at defies every law of causality I know. Information cannot travel backward through time without creating paradoxes that would unravel unless, Harper interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. The information isn't traveling backward. What if it's always been there, encoded in the quantum structure of the universe itself? What if some people sensitives like Cordelia can perceive the probability waves of future events? Sasha stared at her with undisguised admiration. You're suggesting that love itself might be a quantum phenomenon, that hearts can become entangled across space and time, connected by forces we don't yet understand. Is that so impossible? Harper asked, moving slightly closer to him. The scent of his cologne mixed with something uniquely him, like rain on winter air and the ozone that follows lightning 3 weeks ago. I would have said yes, Sasha admitted, his eyes never leaving hers. But 3 weeks ago, I hadn't met someone who could articulate quantum theory while surrounded by treasures from the past. Someone who bridges science and soul with such natural grace. Harper felt her heart begin to race. There was something about the way Sasha looked at her, not just with attraction, though that electricity definitely hummed between them, but with genuine intellectual fascination. As if she were a puzzle he longed to solve and a masterpiece he yearned to admire all at once. Tell me about your work, she said, settling into one of the archive room's comfortable leather chairs and gesturing for him to join her. I want to understand how you see time, how you perceive the universe. Sasha sank into the chair across from her, and Harper noticed how he moved with the fluid grace of someone comfortable in his own skin. In quantum mechanics, he began, his voice taking on the passionate cadence of someone discussing their greatest love. We discover that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. I study what happens at the boundaries. Where does possibility become reality? Where does the future crystallize from the infinite cloud of potential? As he spoke, his hands moved expressively, painting equations in the air, and Harper found herself mesmerized not just by his words but by the poetry in his movements. The way his entire being seemed to light up when discussing the mysteries of existence. But here's what fascinates me most, he continued, leaning forward with excitement. Recent experiments suggest that consciousness itself might play a role in collapsing probability waves. That perhaps the universe requires witnesses' hearts and minds capable of choosing one reality from infinite possibilities. So you're saying, Harper said slowly, the implications dawning on her that perhaps love stories like ours aren't just predicted by the universe, they're actively chosen by it. That consciousness and connection might be fundamental forces, not just happy accidents. Sasha's smile was radiant. Exactly. And if that's true, then what we're feeling right now, this impossible connection, this sense of recognition might be the universe's way of ensuring that certain bonds form across space and time. Harper reached for the pressed rose from Cordelia's time capsule, handling it with infinite care. As she held it up to the lamplight, both she and Sasha gasped. The flower, which should have been brown and brittle after a century, glowed with soft pink light, as if some force had preserved not just its physical form but its essential life force. "It's beautiful," Sasha whispered, his eyes reflecting the rose's ethereal glow. "It's more than that," Harper said, her voice filled with wonder. "It's still alive somehow, not just the petals, but the love that was pressed into it 100 years ago. Can you feel it?" Without thinking, Sasha reached out, his fingers brushing against Harper's as they both held the rose. The moment their skin touched, the flower pulsed with brighter light, and both of them felt a jolt of connection so profound it seemed to resonate in their very bones. "The quantum field around us just shifted," Sasha breathed, his fingers still touching hers. "I can feel it in my lab equipment from here, as if our connection is generating some kind of harmonic frequency." Harper couldn't speak. The sensation of Sasha's skin against hers was sending waves of warmth up her arm and straight to her heart. This wasn't just physical attraction, though the magnetic pull between them was undeniable. This was something deeper, a recognition that seemed to echo from her soul. They stayed like that for several heartbeats, hands touching over a century-old rose that glowed with renewed life, eyes locked in a gaze that seemed to communicate without words. Harper felt as though she were looking into the eyes of someone she'd been waiting for all her life without even knowing it. "Harper," Sasha said softly, her name sounding like music in his accented voice. "I know this sounds impossible, but I feel as though I've been searching for you without even knowing what I was looking for. Like my equations were incomplete because they were missing some essential variable." "I know exactly what you mean," Harper whispered. "I've spent years preserving other people's love stories, but I never understood why they moved me so deeply. Now I think maybe I was learning how to recognize the real thing when it finally appeared." The grandfather clock chimed 7 times, its resonant tones seeming to ripple through dimensions, and in that moment, both Harper and Sasha knew with absolute certainty that their lives had just changed forever. The question was no longer whether they were meant to find each other, the question was what they were meant to do with this impossible, beautiful connection that defied every law of science and probability they knew as if responding to their shared realization. Every object in the archive room began to glow with soft, warm light: photographs, letters, jewelry, books, all the preserved tokens of love and loss and hope began to pulse in gentle unison, as if bearing witness to something extraordinary beginning to unfold. "We need to document this," Sasha said, though he made no move to let go of Harper's hand. "The energy readings, the temporal fluctuations, if we're witnessing some kind of quantum love phenomenon, we need to understand it." Harper laughed, a sound like silver bells in the glowing archive room. "Only you would want to study our connection while we're having it. But you're right, if this is happening to us, it might be happening to others too. Maybe that's why Cordelia left this capsule. Maybe she understood something about love that science is only beginning to discover together." They spent the next hour moving through the mansion, Sasha's hand held quantum field detector beeping steadily as they traced the energy patterns flowing through the building. Harper marveled at how natural it felt to work alongside him, their minds seeming to complement each other perfectly, his scientific precision balancing her intuitive understanding of human emotion and history. The readings are strongest in the East Wing, Sasha noted as they climbed the mansion's grand staircase, its carved banister warm beneath Harper's palm. But there are secondary energy patterns throughout the building, almost like neural networks connecting different rooms. The mansion itself might be quantum entangled, Harper suggested, surprising herself with how easily the scientific terminology came. What if Cordelia somehow encoded the building's architecture with love-enhancing properties? What if that's why the Thornfield Institute was established here, because this place naturally amplifies emotional connections? Sasha stopped on the landing and turned to face her, his eyes bright with excitement and admiration. "Your mind is extraordinary," he said softly. "You think in dimensions I never considered, seeing the emotional architecture underlying physical reality." Harper felt he tries in her cheeks, but she didn't look away from his gaze. "You make me think in ways I never have before. Usually, I approach things through feeling and intuition. But with you, I want to understand the mathematical poetry of how hearts connect." They continued their exploration, entering rooms that seemed to exist in slightly different temporal states. In one chamber, Harper swore she could hear the faint sound of 1920 seconds jazz music. In another, Sasha's instruments detected what appeared to be temporal echoes, ghostly imprints of conversations and connections from decades past. It's as if the mansion exists in multiple time periods simultaneously, Sasha mused as they entered what had once been Cordelia's private study. The room was exactly as she had left it in 1923, preserved under the Institute's care, filled with books on metaphysics, astronomy charts, and what appeared to be hand-drawn diagrams of quantum probability patterns. She was a scientist, Harper breathed, running her fingers along a notebook filled with equations that looked remarkably similar to the ones Sasha used in his work. But she was studying the quantum mechanics of love decades before the field was even named. Sasha examined Cordelia's notebooks with growing amazement. These calculations. She was modeling consciousness as a quantum field, predicting how emotional resonance might create stable probability patterns across time. Harper, she essentially mapped the mathematical structure of destiny as they pored over Cordelia's research together. Harper became increasingly aware of Sasha's presence beside her, the way he smelled like winter air and electrical storms, the way his voice dropped to a whisper when he was particularly fascinated by something, the way his eyes lit up when he discovered a new connection. More than once, she caught herself studying the strong line of his jaw or the graceful movements of his hands as he traced equations in the air. "Look at this," Sasha said, pointing to a diagram that showed two spiraling energy patterns converging into a single, more complex waveform. She predicted that when two consciousness fields achieve quantum entanglement, they create a resonance cascade that can actually alter probability patterns around them. In essence, love doesn't just change the lovers, it changes reality itself to support their connection. Harper's breath caught. So when two people are meant to be together, the universe literally rearranges itself to help them find each other. According to Cordelia's calculations, yes. Sasha's voice was soft with wonder. And the stronger the entanglement, the more reality shifts to accommodate their bond. They looked at each other across Cordelia's antique desk, and Harper felt the truth of those words resonating in her very bones. Since meeting Sasha just hours before, She felt as though the world had become more vivid, more alive, more full of possibility. Colors seemed brighter, connections clearer. Her own intuitive abilities sharpened to an almost supernatural degree. "I need to show you something," Harper said suddenly, remembering a discovery she'd made weeks earlier. She led Sasha to a glass display case containing what appeared to be an ordinary pocket watch. This belonged to Cordelia's husband, Thomas. According to the documentation, he died in the war in 1918, 5 years before she sealed the time capsule. Sasha approached the case, and immediately his quantum detector began beeping rapidly. "The energy signature is off the charts," he murmured. "It's as if the watch is still connected to someone, still counting time for a heart that should have stopped beating a century ago." "That's not the extraordinary part," Harper said softly. She opened the case and carefully lifted the watch, cradling it in her palms. Every day at exactly 3:17 p.m., this watch chimes once, even though it hasn't been wound in decades. "And look at this," she opened the watch's case, revealing an inscription: "For my beloved Cordelia, time cannot separate hearts that beat as one. All my love across all possible worlds, Thomas." 3:17 p.m., Sasha repeated thoughtfully. "That's precisely when my quantum readings detected the temporal echo 3 days ago. And if I'm calculating correctly," he pulled out his phone, checking the time. "It's 3:15 right now." They stood in perfect silence, Harper cradling the antique watch while Sasha monitored his instruments. At exactly 3:17, the watch chimed once, a clear, sweet note that seemed to resonate not just through the room but through their very souls. At the same moment, every piece of equipment in Sasha's lab throughout the mansion registered a massive spike in quantum field activity. "He's still connected to her," Harper whispered, tears of wonder gathering in her eyes. "Even though he's been gone for over a century, their love is still active, still sending signals across time and space." Sasha moved closer, drawn by the emotion in her voice and the profound implications of what they were witnessing. "Harper, do you understand what this means? If consciousness can maintain quantum entanglement beyond physical death, then love might be literally eternal, not as poetry or metaphor, but as actual scientific fact." Harper looked up at him, and in that moment, surrounded by the evidence of love that transcended time itself, she felt her heart open completely to this remarkable man who saw poetry in equations and forever in quantum fields. "It means," she said softly, "that what we're feeling right now might be the most real thing in the universe." Sasha reached out, his fingers gently tracing the line of her cheek with a touch so tender it made her breath catch. "Harper, in all my years studying the fundamental forces of reality, I've never encountered anything as powerful as what happens when you look at me. You make me believe that the universe isn't just mathematical, it's magical." Harper leaned into his touch, feeling safe and cherished and recognized in a way she'd never experienced before. "You make me feel like all those love stories I've been preserving were preparing me to recognize my own when it finally arrived." The grandfather clock chimed the half hour, and in its resonant tones, both Harper and Sasha heard the sound of their hearts beginning to beat in perfect synchronization, two consciousness fields discovering the eternal dance of quantum entanglement, of love that exists beyond the boundaries of time and space. As twilight deepened into evening, Harper and Sasha found themselves drawn back to the archive room where their story had begun. The objects around them continued to pulse with gentle light, as if the entire mansion had become attuned to the growing connection between them. But now there was something else in the air, a building tension that made Harper's heart race and her skin tingle with awareness every time Sasha moved closer to her. "I should probably return to my lab." Sasha said, though he made no move to leave. Instead, he lingered near the window where Harper stood, watching the last light fade from the sky. My evening experiments will be starting soon, and after today's discoveries, I need to recalibrate all my instruments. Of course, Harper replied, but her voice was breathless, and she found herself studying the strong line of his profile in the lamplight. I should finish cataloging the time capsule contents anyway. Neither of them moved. The space between them seemed to hum with electric possibility, and Harper became acutely aware of every detail of Sasha's presence, the way he breathed, slightly uneven as if he too was affected by the charged atmosphere between them. The way his hands moved restlessly at his sides, as if he wanted to reach for her but was holding himself back. The way his eyes kept finding hers and lingering there with an intensity that made her feel beautiful and desired and completely understood all at once. "Harper," Sasha said finally, his voice rough with an emotion that sent shivers down her spine. "I need you to know that what's happening between us, it's not just the quantum phenomena or Cordelia's predictions. Even if we discovered tomorrow that all of this was just an extraordinary coincidence, I would still feel this way about you. You would still be the woman who makes my equations come alive, who sees magic in mathematics and finds forever in ancient objects." Harper turned to face him fully, her heart hammering against her ribs. In the soft light of the archive room, Sasha looked like something from a dream, his dark hair catching glints of gold, his eyes reflecting depths that seemed to go on forever, his entire being radiating a warmth that made her want to step closer, and closer until there was no space left between them at all. "I feel like I've been waiting for you my entire life." Without even knowing it, she whispered, taking a half step toward him. "All those love letters I've read, all those photographs of couples gazing at each other with perfect devotion, I never understood what they were feeling until tonight." Sasha's breath caught audibly, and she saw his hands clench slightly at his sides. "Do you have any idea what you do to me when you say things like that?" he asked, his voice low and heated. "When you look at me like I'm the answer to every question you never knew you were asking." Harper took another step closer, and now she was close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body, close enough to catch the slight tremor in his breathing. "Show me," she said, surprised by her own boldness but unable to hold back the words. "Show me what I do to you." For a moment that stretched like eternity, they stood frozen on the edge of something that would change everything. Harper could see the internal battle playing out in Sasha's eyes, desire warring with restraint, passion fighting against the need to protect something precious and new. Then, with infinite care, he reached out and cupped her face in his hands. "You make me believe in forever," he whispered, his thumbs tracing gentle patterns across her cheekbones. "You make me understand why poets write sonnets and why quantum physicists search for unified theories. You are the missing variable that makes all my equations balance perfectly." Harper's eyes fluttered closed at his touch, her entire being focused on the sensation of his skin against hers, the way his voice wrapped around her like silk and honey. When she opened them again, she found him gazing at her with such profound tenderness that it took her breath away. "Sasha," she breathed, and his name on her lips seemed to break something loose inside him. He moved closer, his forehead coming to rest against hers, their breaths mingling in the space between them. Harper could feel his heartbeat through the thin fabric of his shirt, rapid and strong and perfectly synchronized with her own racing pulse. "I want to kiss you," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've wanted to since the moment I walked into this room and saw you surrounded by all these love stories." looking like you were the keeper of every romantic secret the universe has ever held. Then why don't you? Harper asked, her hands coming up to rest against his chest, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath her palms. Because, Sasha said, his eyes searching hers, once I start, I'm not sure I'll ever want to stop. And I don't want to rush this, Harper. What we have is too precious, too extraordinary to treat as anything less than sacred. Harper felt her heart swell with love so profound it almost frightened her with its intensity. This man who studied the deepest mysteries of the universe was treating their connection with such reverence, such careful respect that she felt treasured beyond anything she had ever imagined. But before she could respond, a loud alarm began blaring from the direction of Sasha's lab, and the gentle glow surrounding the archived objects suddenly flared into brilliant, pulsing light. That's impossible, Sasha muttered, pulling away from Harper to check his phone. My containment fields are destabilizing, but I'm not even running an active experiment tonight. The alarm grew louder, and now Harper could hear other alarms joining the chorus throughout the mansion. Through the archive room's windows, she could see lights flashing in laboratories across the building. The quantum cascade, Sasha said, his face paling as understanding dawned. Our connection, it's generating more energy than I calculated. We need to get to my lab immediately, or the temporal feedback could create paradoxes throughout the entire building. Harper felt a chill of fear run through her veins. What kind of paradoxes? The kind that could erase us from this timeline entirely, Sasha said grimly, taking her hand. Come on. If we're going to save our love story, we need to run. As they rushed through the mansion's corridors, Harper couldn't help but think that even imminent temporal disaster couldn't diminish the warmth she felt from Sasha's hand clasped firmly in hers. Whatever was about to happen, they would face it together, and somehow, that made her feel invincible. The quantum forces swirling around them might be threatening to tear apart the very fabric of reality. But Harper knew with absolute certainty that what existed between her and Sasha was stronger than time, more enduring than space, and more powerful than any force the universe could summon to stand against them. Their love story was just beginning, and she would fight through any paradox, any impossible odds, to ensure it had the chance to unfold. Sasha's laboratory was a wonderland of controlled chaos, quantum computers humming with otherworldly energy, holographic displays showing probability cascades in real time, and at the center of it all, a device that looked like a cross between a telescope and a particle accelerator, crackling with unstable temporal energy. The quantum entanglement field we generated is creating resonance loops throughout the building, Sasha explained rapidly, his fingers flying over multiple keyboards as he tried to stabilize the chaotic energy readings. Every object with emotional significance is feeding back into the system, amplifying our connection exponentially. Harper watched in amazement as the displays showed energy patterns spiraling outward from their exact location, reaching into every corner of the mansion and beyond. It's beautiful, she breathed, seeing the mathematical representation of their love spreading like ripples across the fabric of reality itself. It's dangerous, Sasha corrected, though there was wonder in his voice too. If we can't control the cascade, it could create temporal fractures that split us across multiple timelines. We could lose each other forever, scattered across infinite possible realities where we never met. The thought sent ice through Harper's veins. To have found Sasha, to have discovered this incredible connection, only to lose him to the very quantum forces that had brought them together, it was unthinkable. What do we do? She asked, moving to stand beside him at the central control console. I need to map our specific entanglement signature, Sasha said, his hands steady despite the crisis. If I can isolate the frequency that connects our consciousness fields, I might be able to create a stabilization field that locks us into this timeline permanently. Tell me how to help. Harper said immediately. Sasha looked at her with such love and gratitude that it took her breath away. I need you to hold this, he said, handing her what appeared to be a crystalline device that pulsed with the same warm light they'd been seeing all evening. It's a quantum resonance amplifier. It will attune itself to your specific consciousness frequency, but Harper, his expression grew serious. The process is going to amplify every emotion you're feeling. Every thought, every fear, every hope, it's all going to be magnified beyond anything you've ever experienced. Harper took the device without hesitation, feeling it warm immediately in her hands. If it means keeping us together, I'll face whatever comes. Sasha began the stabilization sequence, and instantly Harper felt the crystal's effects wash over her like a tide of pure sensation. Every emotion she'd been feeling about Sasha intensified until it felt like her heart might burst from the sheer magnitude of her love for him. The attraction she felt became a magnetic pull so strong it was almost gravitational. The safety and recognition she'd found in his presence expanded into a sense of coming home that reached into her very soul. I can feel you, she gasped, the crystal blazing with light in her hands. Sasha, I can feel your heart beating inside my own chest. The entanglement is deepening, Sasha confirmed, his voice tight with concentration and emotion. Harper, I need you to focus on us on this moment, this feeling, this choice to be together. The quantum field is going to try to show you other possibilities, other timelines where we never met or where we make different choices. Don't let it seduce you away from this reality. But even as he spoke, Harper began to see flickering images around the edges of her vision, glimpses of other lives, other versions of herself and Sasha in one. She saw herself as a lonely archivist who never opened Cordelia's time capsule. In another, Sasha appeared as a bitter scientist whose experiments failed because he never learned to see the poetry in mathematics. There were dozens, hundreds of possible realities spreading out like branches of an infinite tree. I see them, Harper whispered, terror and wonder warring in her voice. All the ways we might never have found each other. All the timelines where we're alone. Focus on me, Sasha said urgently, abandoning his controls to move to her side. Focus on this timeline, this choice, this love. Whatever you do, don't let go of what we have. But the visions were becoming more insistent, more seductive. Harper could see a reality where she was a successful author, traveling the world and writing best-selling novels about the love stories she'd preserved. She could see herself wealthy, famous, fulfilled in ways she'd never imagined, but alone. Always alone. And in the quantum echoes, she could hear the whisper of possibility suggesting that perhaps solitude was safer. Perhaps love was just a beautiful illusion that would inevitably lead to heartbreak. No, Harper said fiercely, the crystal blazing brighter in her hands. I choose this. I choose us. I choose love over safety, connection over certainty, and whatever we build together over anything I might accomplish alone. The moment she spoke those words, the chaotic energy readings on Sasha's displays began to stabilize. But the quantum field had one more test for them. Suddenly, Harper found herself standing in what appeared to be the archive room, but decades in the future. Her hair was silver, her hands lined with age, and she stood alone among dusty boxes and forgotten artifacts. In this vision, she had lived her entire life in the mansion, becoming a renowned expert in historical preservation. But she had never loved and never been loved in return. This is what safety looks like, a voice whispered, perhaps the quantum field itself, perhaps just the echo of her own fears. No heartbreak, no loss, no risk of losing yourself in someone else's dreams. But then Harper heard it, faint but unmistakable, the sound of the grandfather clock chiming in the distance. And with each chime, she remembered Sasha's voice like distant thunder, his eyes reflecting infinite possibilities. The way he made her feel like her mind was a precious treasure to be explored and cherished. The way her heart had recognized him the moment he walked into her life. I would rather have one day of real love than a century of beautiful solitude, Harper declared to the vision. I would rather risk everything for connection than guarantee nothing through isolation. The future vision shattered like glass, and Harper found herself back in Sasha's lab. But now he too was experiencing the quantum field's tests. She could see in his eyes the reflection of other possibilities, realities where his research made him famous, where he won Nobel Prizes and revolutionized physics, but where he never learned to see the magic in ancient objects or the poetry in human connection. Sasha, Harper called out, even though he stood right beside her. Can you hear me? I see worlds where I solve the mysteries of the universe, Sasha replied, his voice strained. Where I unlock the secrets of time itself, where my name is remembered alongside Einstein and Hawking. But Harper, his voice broke with emotion. In every one of those timelines, my equations are cold and empty because I never found the variable that makes them sing. I never found you. The crystalline device in Harper's hand suddenly grew warm beyond bearing. And she realized that this was the moment, the crucial choice that would determine not just their fate, but the fate of love itself across multiple timelines. I love you, Harper said, the words bursting from her heart with the force of absolute truth. I love your mind that sees poetry in quantum fields. I love your voice that makes my name sound like music. I love the way you treat our connection like something sacred. I love how you make me believe that the universe is not just mathematical but magical. And I choose this love over every other possibility the quantum field can show me. Harper, Sasha breathed, tears streaming down his face as he fought against the visions trying to pull him toward other realities. I love you more than I love my research, more than I love my own understanding of the universe. You are the unified theory I never knew I was searching for, the equation that makes everything else make sense. I choose you, I choose us, I choose this impossible, beautiful love over every achievement and discovery that exists in all possible worlds. The moment they both spoke their choice aloud, the quantum cascade stabilized completely. The chaotic energy readings smoothed into perfect harmonic waves. The alarms fell silent, and throughout the mansion, every object settled into a gentle, steady glow, not the harsh brightness of unstable energy, but the warm illumination of love that had found its perfect frequency. Harper and Sasha found themselves standing in the sudden quiet of the laboratory, the crystalline device now pulsing with gentle light in Harper's hands, their hearts beating in perfect synchronization. The quantum field around them hummed with the contentment of forces that had found their ideal balance. We did it, Sasha said wonderingly. We chose each other across infinite possibilities and the universe. The universe approved. Harper set down the crystal and turned to face him fully, her eyes bright with tears of joy and relief and love so profound it seemed to light her from within. Does this mean we're quantum entangled for eternity? According to every reading I'm getting, Sasha said, moving closer to her with steps that seemed to span worlds. we're connected across space and time in ways that make us literally inseparable. Our consciousness fields are permanently intertwined. Harper, we just became the first scientifically verified case of eternal love. Harper laughed, the sound like silver bells ringing across dimensions. So when you kiss me, it's going to resonate across the quantum foam of reality itself. Let's find out, Sasha whispered, cupping her face in his hands with infinite tenderness. When their lips met for the first time, it was like the universe itself sighed with satisfaction. Every quantum computer in the lab registered perfect harmonics. Every preserved love story in the mansion's archives glowed with renewed warmth. And somewhere in the space between seconds, Harper could have sworn she heard Cordelia Thornfield's laughter, filled with the joy of a plan that had taken a century to unfold, finally reaching its perfect completion in the gentle aftermath of their quantum stabilization. Harper and Sasha found themselves in Cordelia's study once more, surrounded by the warm glow of objects that now seemed to pulse in harmony with their synchronized heartbeats. The crisis had passed. Their love had been tested across multiple timelines and chosen every time. And now they could simply be together in the peaceful certainty of connection that transcended the ordinary boundaries of space and time. Look, Harper whispered, pointing to Cordelia's research notebooks. The pages, which had been filled with equations and theoretical possibilities just hours before, now showed new writing appearing in the same elegant script messages from across time itself. My dear Harper and Sasha, the new writing read. You have proven that love is indeed the fundamental force I always believed it to be. Your connection will serve as a template, helping other hearts find their quantum entangled partners across the years to come. The mansion is now permanently attuned to the frequency of true love. Use this gift wisely, and know that Thomas and I watch over your happiness from our own eternal dimension. Sasha traced the words with wonder. She's still here, still guiding love stories across time. Our connection didn't just stabilize our own timeline, it strengthened the bridge between worlds, making it easier for other soulmates to find each other. Harper nestled against his side, feeling utterly safe and complete as his arms wrapped around her. So we're not just quantum entangled lovers, we're quantum cupids. The first of many, I hope, Sasha said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head that made her feel cherished beyond words. But for tonight, I just want to hold you and marvel at the fact that across infinite possible realities, we found each other in this one. They made their way back to the archive room where their story had begun. And Harper was delighted to discover that Cordelia's time capsule now contained new items that hadn't been there before, a small quantum crystal that pulsed with their shared energy signature, a photograph of the two of them that somehow showed them in clothing from the 1920s, as if their love had always existed across time, and a letter in Harper's own handwriting that she didn't remember writing but that filled her with warmth to read. Two future lovers who doubt that soulmates exist look for the impossible coincidences, the moments when reality bends to bring you together, the feeling that you've found the missing piece of your own soul. Trust in love that transcends time, and know that Harper and Sasha are proof that some connections are written in the quantum foam of the universe itself. When did I write this? Harper asked, though she felt a deep certainty that she would indeed write these exact words someday, sending encouragement across time to lovers who needed hope. Time isn't linear for quantum entangled hearts, Sasha explained softly, his voice taking on the drowsy cadence of someone perfectly content. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously for us now. We'll spend our lives discovering all the ways our love ripples across time. helping other couples find their way to each other just as Cordelia helped us as midnight approached. They settled together on the comfortable couch in the archive room, Harper's head resting on Sasha's shoulder while he traced lazy patterns on her arm. Around them, the preserved love stories continued to glow with gentle warmth, as if all the couples whose memories were stored in these artifacts were celebrating the addition of a new love story to their eternal collection. What happens now? Harper asked sleepily, feeling completely at peace for the first time in her adult life. Now, Sasha said, his voice soft as silk and warm as starlight. We wake up tomorrow and begin building a life together that defies every law of probability. We'll spend our days studying the quantum mechanics of love, helping other couples understand that true connection is the most powerful force in the universe. We'll travel to museums and laboratories around the world, finding artifacts and energy signatures of other quantum entangled lovers throughout history. Harper smiled, her eyes drifting closed as she imagined a future filled with discovery and connection and love that grew stronger with each passing day. And in our spare time? In our spare time, Sasha whispered, his own voice growing drowsy, I'll write you love letters that exist in quantum superposition, poems that say different things each time you read them, but always mean I love you more than the stars love the darkness between them. And you'll show me artifacts that hold the memory of our own future together, objects we haven't created yet, but that already exist in the quantum foam of possibility. Will you read to me? Harper asked, the words barely audible as sleep began to claim her. From Cordelia's research notebooks. I want to fall asleep to the sound of your voice explaining how love makes the universe make sense. Sasha reached for one of Cordelia's journals, and in a voice that held all the warmth of distant thunder and all the wonder of someone who had just discovered the meaning of existence itself, he began to read aloud the equations that proved love was the fundamental force of reality. As his voice wove through calculations and theoretical frameworks that described the quantum entanglement of hearts, Harper drifted toward sleep with the profound certainty that she was exactly where she belonged, wrapped in the arms of her destined love, surrounded by the evidence of connections that transcend time and space. Part of a story that would continue to unfold across infinite possibilities. The grandfather clock chimed midnight, and in its resonant tones, Harper heard not just the marking of a new day, but the promise of a new kind of love story, one written in the stars themselves, encoded in the quantum structure of reality, and destined to inspire lovers across all possible worlds for generations yet to come. In her dreams that night, Harper saw herself and Sasha decades in the future, their hair silver but their eyes still bright with the wonder of discovery, still finding new ways that their love ripples across dimensions, still helping other hearts recognize the quantum entanglement that makes them complete. And in those dreams, she could hear Cordelia's laughter echoing across time, filled with the satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed and a love story that had become the template for infinite others. Their love had found its frequency, locked into the quantum foam of existence itself, eternal and unbreakable as the fundamental forces of the universe. And so Harper Montgomery and Alexander Volkov slept, quantum entangled across space and time, their hearts beating in perfect synchronization, their dreams intertwining in the space between seconds where all possibilities exist simultaneously, and love proves itself to be the only equation that really matters. The end. And so concludes our journey through time and quantum possibilities, where a museum archivist and a physicist discovered that love truly is the fundamental force of the universe. May your own dreams be filled with connections that transcend ordinary reality, And may you rest peacefully knowing that somewhere in the quantum foam of possibility, your perfect love story is already written, waiting for the right moment to unfold. Sleep well. And remember, some bonds are eternal, some love stories exist across all dimensions, and the heart that recognizes its perfect match is never wrong until our next romantic adventure together. Sweet dreams.